I personally just really love coffee, and I did a degree in youth ministry and theology, and it was just kind of a natural fit together of loving coffee and loving people, and yeah, why not put that together? My name is Ute Borman, and my favorite coffee is a V60, probably a Colombia or Ethiopia. When I was in my last year of the degree, I was looking into doing my dissertation, and I was looking into different topics, different things I could write about. I think it was just God's timing that I started getting more into specialty coffee. That was the same time when the Catons and Lothamers were starting to talk about this dream that they had.
Okay. My name is Jeff Lothamer.
So I'm Christy Lothamer.
My favorite coffee, some sort of a pour-over coffee.
And my favorite coffee is made in a V60 pour-over.
I was part of the megachurch movement in the U.S. I was an executive pastor at a church.
We were doing all the things that we had ever hoped and dreamt that we could do in church, but still had just quite a restlessness and this dissatisfaction of, is this really it?
And we decided to take a little retreat together, Christy and I, and
started praying. And I remember saying, could you just send us somewhere where we could make disciples? And as soon as I finished that prayer, Jeff's phone went off, and there was a text from his friend Steve.
Yeah, I'm Steve Caton.
My name is Sarah Caton.
My favorite coffee would almost maybe depend on who's making it.
You'll quite often find me drinking either a cappuccino or an iced latte.
I drink V60s all the time, and I don't have it with cream or sugar or anything in it. But if I'm going to have a treat, it's going to be a dark chocolate mocha.
So Steve and I were part of a church in Michigan where we lived after we were married for 10 years, and it was a bigger church, and we were on staff.
We had a great community, and we had a lot of great churches, but that was the thing. We had a lot of great churches.
And we had friends that were over here in England. That's a place where maybe we could bring all that we are, and serving in a place that doesn't have so many people serving.
I think all of that was just God just saying something about he wanted to do something new.
Prevailing model of church that we all know and we all came out of, there's a significant amount of people that prevailing model of church is no longer going to reach. So we really had this call of allowing God to use us to create this new wineskin, which, if I'm honest, is laughable.
I knew what it was like to have a worship arts team of 45 people, and to have a budget, and to have a big production on the weekend, and to use those and leverage those for the gospel. God
was teaching us a lot, and not that it was easy, as it wasn't.
People were very confused about why we were here. Why did, if we ever showed a picture of where we lived in Michigan, it's like, why did you come here? And our little joke was, well, we didn't come here for the weather.
We started to wonder about how are we really going to start to have a significant impact in this community.
We were lucky enough to sit under some really good teachings and ideas about missional living. And the thing that will stick with me forever are the 3 Ps. And the first P is that you must have a passion about it, because if you do, you'll never lose interest in it.
Some of us started to say, what if we had, I guess what you could call a third space? So you might have, your home and somebody else's home, but what if there was another place where we could gather?
I remember God just kind of dropping in my spirit about something entrepreneurial, like something that we were meant to start.
We played around with a few different business ideas, and we landed on a coffee shop.
And we realized something interesting, that we actually had a shared passion for something. And as a result, it would not only be something we could share, but it would be something that would bring us together.
And the second P was possession. If you have possession, you have knowledge, you have skills, you have abilities, you have resources, you won't be in over your head.
Jeff and Christy lived over here in Langford, and they knew the man who owns all the different shops.
And he rolls out this piece of paper, and on the paper is this drawing of the Langford Village shops. And he had already drawn in a new building that he was going to add to the end of those shops. And he had wrote Jeff's Cafe.
And then the third is you need to meet a problem. And so if you're meeting a problem, you're never going to lose that momentum or that ability to invest yourself in.
And at that time, there was some report that Britain was the loneliest country in Europe.
We really didn't think a lot of people had good community. We lived next to each other, but we weren't in community with each other. Out of that, we started to think, you know what, we have a passion, we have possessions, and we could meet a problem with this idea of a coffee shop.
We wanted people to be able to come in, irregardless of their faith or lack of faith, and we wanted them to feel like they were loved, they had a great cup of coffee, and they experienced some kind of life.
Did anybody tell you the story how the name came to be?
Someone will tell it better. I'll just say that. Get somebody else to tell that.
Well, I will say Filter came about from God.
We were wrestling with names. I can't even remember all the names that we were thinking about, but my favorite coffee at that time, and my favorite coffee still today, is a cup of filter coffee.
It was taking a name and taking out the vowels and just having a cool name that you could say, and it has to do obviously with coffee.
And it just was this aha moment of like, yeah, full life through relationships.
John 10:10 is a verse that I've always loved, and it refers to the fact that Jesus came not to give life only, but to give life to the full.
I remember sitting in the cafe here, talking to a friend of mine, and he just looked at me and he goes, "Jeff, this is church." And I'm like, everything in me is like, no, it's not. This is a coffee shop.
And I think it was around about that time that we just started having these aha moments of what would be the least common denominator to be able to affirm that, yeah, this is the church Jesus died for. And I think we really came to the conclusion that if there are a group of people who are disciples of Christ and they're living together and they have an active culture of discipleship, they are worshiping Jesus, they're sharing life in community, and they have a clear missional drive to reach the people where they're living, that's church.
And we began to get a greater vision of the new wineskin that God was actually probably 12 years earlier had called us all to come and do. But at that time, we never would have thought of this. It was something that God had to do a lot of work in our lives and take us on a bit of a journey. And I think he's still doing that. We're still creating and innovating what the future of the church might look like.
So I think the transition for us lately has been not so much in the habits and ins and outs of Filter, but more defining for the believing community behind Filter to say this is what we do and this is who we are, and basically that qualifies us as a church community.
And at that point, it really felt like the buzz among the customers was just more along the lines of, I've never been to a coffee shop like this that's so friendly and so engaged in community. And, we were already kind of doing different things like the games nights and things like that.
And that's that's where I think God's taking us. It's not like this is church and this is how it's defined, and then we plant other just like a cookie cutter, like everything looks the same. It's like Filter Coffee is a space where God's kingdom exists because Jesus's followers are here, and his followers love the people that walk through the doors every day.
I imagine that there in the near future will be groups within our Filter community that say, actually, we're feeling led to branch out a little bit, maybe beyond Filter, maybe beyond Langford, or maybe the missional heartbeat is growing a little bit beyond, some of this really loving and caring for this community and making a difference in this community. And they're going to take what they have learned with us and they're going to say, what if we make a shift and we do that over here?
But that doesn't mean now we got to go start coffee shops all over the country. That sounds exhausting.
One of our elders who lives up on the new estate called Graven Hill, and he had already been building all these relationships through the pandemic with his neighbors. I think that realization of like, oh my goodness, you mean I could lead church. I could start a church in my neighborhood that would be accessible to these neighbors that are beginning to trust me and beginning to know me.
But then when we said, actually, let's bring some of our church community around this and start even more intentional missional efforts, some of those things just started to bubble out of our people.
Hi, my name is Becky and I'm part of the FLTR community. I felt that in 2020 during the pandemic that I needed to come away from the constraints of the school environment, and I felt God's call to move me into being self-employed. And it was actually through the really great mentoring that came from the FLTR community that I felt actually that it was possible to build a business that had a kingdom heart to it.
Hi, I'm Michael, and I started a mission called Wisdom Made Easy, which aims to encourage people to get wiser by sharing wisdom in a way that is easy to understand and apply in everyday life.
My name is Kate, and I joined the FLTR community just before the first lockdown in 2020. Since then, the FLTR community has helped me with a small unregistered charity that I've been running since 2017 called Provide. I really couldn't run Provide without the people from the FLTR community. They're a wonderful support and I'm very grateful to them. God really is working in our community.
So not only is it a pull to create the wellbeing centre that I feel God wants me to start here, I also feel like a part of a family, which is really beautiful. And something I really appreciate about FLTR is that you can bring your ideas to the table and that has space to be supported and encouraged, and you can bring others along the journey with you.
Unfortunately, I've been really supported from the FLTR MicroChurch. I've been encouraged, prayed for, and kept accountable just to make sure that what I was sharing was God honouring. I can't imagine doing something like this without them, and so I'm really thankful for being part of this community.
Oh, this is what we've been working on all this time, is to get to this place where we really believe that everybody gets to play, that everyone's a priest, everyone has a part to play in connecting an unbeliever to God, and you connect in the places where you live, work, and play, and so we've got to be church in those places.
Just the other day, I was talking to a very regular customer who actually confided in me. He doesn't really care that much for coffee, but he really likes buying coffee at FLTR. And this was on the end of a 5-6 minute conversation I'd had with him, and it was the case in point that people want to be there because they feel cared for, they feel seen, they feel safe, they feel welcome, and they know that we have a genuine care for them because of God's love and compassion on us.
You just seeing people get back to like, yeah, I think this is what it was meant to be like all along. And I'm not sure in some of the things that the ways we've been doing church in the last couple hundred years, we really afforded people to do that. And I think God's on the move to shift that.
So it's very little about profit. It is a little bit about really good coffee and really good food. But it is mostly about the feel of belonging to a community and being part of that because of Jesus.
Personally, for me, the people is the main thing for me to work here. To love them well, to serve them well, to continue those relationships. And for us, the coffee shop was just a no-brainer because we were passionate about coffee, but we were also passionate about people. But it doesn't have to be a coffee shop.
For those people wanting to develop microchurches, it really, there is no ingredient or recipe list. It is clarifying to the people on mission with to say, this is what defines and identifies us, and this is what we're about.
It could be any place where people can gather and feel a sense of community.
I think sharing lives together, I think known and being known.
Group of people who are quite fond of each other, sitting around a table, sharing food.
Worship, community, mission, and discipleship.